So the end of the previous lecture, we just put up a this slide here where it talks about the ways that we deal with the dissonance. And remember, I made the case beforehand that we, as humans, we're motivated to deal with it because dissonance doesn't make us feel good. It makes us feel aroused and stressed, and those are not particularly good things. So therefore, we have to deal with our dissonance. So what we have here are the three ways that we do kind of work through the dissonance that we feel. And what I wanted to do was talk about a study that dealt with each one of these three, so you can just get an idea of how we address this. All right, so the first is whenever we're dissonant, what we do is we change our behavior to be in line with the dissonant cognition. All right, so this is a study by Dickerson, et al., 1992, and I really like this study because it sampled a really unique population of people, and what they wanted to do was look at, do people change their behaviors when they feel that dissonance? So they sampled women swimmers after a college swimming practice. And what they wanted to do is look at water conservation. And so what we have to know, if you don't swim, I certainly don't swim, basically after swim practice is over, men and women swimmers, what they do is they shower afterwards. And they shower because they're in the pool with all the chlorine and the chemicals, and showering helps them remove all that stuff. Now, they used women swimmers because if you've ever seen male swimmers, not all of them, but most of them have really short hair or no hair at all on their head because it makes them kind of more aerodynamic to swim faster through the pool without any hair. Now, women swimmers can have short hair. I'm not saying they can't, but most of them wear caps. All right, they wear caps because they can cover all their hair, and so that they go more aerodynamically. So they picked women swimmers here because presumably that women on average take longer showers than men on average, especially swimmers, because women swimmers tend to have longer hair. All right. Now here's what they did to these women swimmers. So after the women swimmers got out of the pool, as they're walking to the shower area, there was a researcher standing there that said they were with the campus water conservation group. All right. And in one group, what they got was the swimmers were reminded that they asked water with questions and answers. As the swimmer was walking there to the shower room, an experimenter would say, "How often do you shower? Are you aware that?" They would say things like, "Are you aware that if you turn off the shower while you're lathering your hair with shampoo, that you would save water? Do you know how much water you use? How long do you take in the shower?" Questions like that. And basically through these questions, they were reminded that they waste water. All right. In another condition, if you were in the commitment condition, which is here, participants, instead of getting asked questions and answers, they were just given a kind of a flyer that explains water conservation, how it works as it pertains to taking showers. All right, how can you save water while showering? The third group was the hypocrisy group. They got both. They got both the question and the answer and the flyer. And then finally, the control group got nothing. They just got to go take their shower. Now, the exercise here is you have to understand is that I want you to identify who should be the most dissonant person. What group should have the most dissonance? And what group should have the least? So let's deal with the least. What group should have the least amount of dissonance? And if you said the control group, you would be right because they're not reminded about their wasting water. All right, so they're not reminded of that, so they just go about their day. Nothing's wrong. This group here should be the most dissonant because they were kind of double reminded. Now, these people here in these two groups, both of them should feel dissonant, but not as much as this person here. All right, so you have this dissonance, like water wasting is bad for the earth. You waste water because you shower. And if we're looking at changing behaviors, what do you think they're going to do? Who's going to shower the least? All right, who's going to shower the least? So what they did is they actually measure that. So for the dependent variable was the amount of water that they used during their shower. So they actually had another female researcher in the shower, and they would have a stopwatch, and they would actually time how long the showers took. Now, the swimmers were not aware of this, all right? But they were just timing them for their shower, okay? And here's what they found in terms of the results. Now remember, so these are in minutes, right? So the y-axis here, that's in minutes. Look at this control group. Remember, these are the people who were told nothing. The average shower was a shade over 5 minutes. All right, so I'm sorry, these are in seconds. Sorry, seconds. So it was a shade over 5 minutes for the control group. But look what happens when they're dissonant. Look what happens. Remember, these two groups, they should feel some level of dissonance, and they're about the same. They cut their shower time by about, a minute compared to the other group here. So instead of showering for 5 minutes, they showered for 4. But look at the hypocrisy group. This was the lowest group of all. And what these results show is that one way that we deal with our dissonance is we change our behaviors. If wasting water is bad and you're reminded of that, you don't want to be a bad person. So what do? You change your behaviors accordingly, and that's what this is here. All right. Kind of a cool study. I like how it uses a very select sample of people who would naturally be needing to shower anyway. And so it's this very naturalistic kind of observational piece that had an experimental bend to it. So we can make calls and claims about this because of its experimentation. And I really thought that was a really kind of cool, externally valid kind of study, while it is also internally valid because of the random assignment used. All right. So the second way we reduce our dissonance is by justifying it by changing our beliefs. All right, we change our beliefs. So basically, this is what is called self-justification. This was the first study. Remember, Festinger and Carl Smith. That's what that stands for. These were the people that did it. All right, so this fits here. Remember, you change your mind or you change your belief. So you're not dissonant anymore. Festinger and Carl Smith did that. That was the $1 condition, right? But another study was Aronson and Mills, and I really like this study, even though it's old, because it's A, classic, B, it's talked about in your book, and C, we're going to relate this to the real world today. So what these people did is participants in this study wanted to be in a group. However, getting into that group was going to be not so much fun. Now, what's interesting about this study is that the participants, even though they wanted to be in the group, all the participants were female. That's going to be important in a second. So they had these female participants, and what happened was they said that this is an all-women's group, and the group is going to talk about a variety of topics, one of which, for the purposes of this, was going to be the topic of sex. So what they had to do then is the participants had to take what they called the embarrassment test. All right. So this is where participants were randomly assigned. So we have to put this in context. This is in the 50s, and women in the 50s were really not, it was kind of taboo for them to talk about sex. All right. It was very taboo for them to talk about sex. And but that's what this group was going to be about. And so they had to take this embarrassment test. So participants are randomly assigned one of 3 conditions. And the first condition here, this was demanding and unpleasant. So the embarrassment test was that in order to become a part of this group, you have to say 12 obscene words on a note card. Now I'm actually looking at the article as we speak, and I'm going to read for you the 3 words they use in their article. So these are not my words. Not my words. These are their words. So an example of some of the unpleasant and demanding words these women had to say in the 50s were, and I quote, fuck, cock, screw. Those were 3 of the words they had to say out loud. All right. In addition to that, these participants had to read out loud vivid sexual words from like a smut novel. All right. So that's what these participants had to do. Very unpleasant. In the mildly unpleasant condition, it was they had to do the embarrassment test, but the words weren't as obscene. So, for example, they had to say words like prostitute, virgin, petting. All right, once again, I'm reading straight from the article. So it was not as kind of vulgar, and there was no reading from a novel. And finally, the third group, they didn't have to do any of this embarrassment test. All right. Now, after they did this test, or not, for those after they did what they were supposed to do for their groups, after that, they were told, before you get to join the group, we want you to listen to what is going on in the group. All right, we want you to listen to a conversation that the group members are having, just so you can get a feel for what they're about. Okay, so these people put on their headphones, and this was a pre-recorded thing, and it was boring. It was, like girls going around saying their name and major. But it was very boring, kind of monotone, like, hi, my name is Jill. I'm from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and I'm a sociology major. Hi, my name is Heather. I am a finance major, but I'm from Biglerville. I mean, how boring is that? All right. And so after the boring task was over, they had to rate how enjoyable the task was. All right. Now let's think about who's dissonant. These people here just did an extremely, terribly, crazy ordeal to get into this group. And then they heard their group talk. Okay? And it's boring. Think about how dissonant that is. They just did something to get into this group. It was so hard to get in, and now it's boring. Right? How dissonant are they going to feel? Pretty damn dissonant. These people here, they shouldn't feel any dissonance whatsoever. And sure enough, that's exactly what they find. So this was how much did you enjoy the task on the y-axis here. And what you see here is that the severe group said they loved the boring task compared to this group or this group. The severe group loved it. The task was the same. Everyone heard the same boring, let's meet your group recording. But this group here, the severe group, they said they loved it. Look how high that bar is. Think about, this is why for studies like this are why things like hazing happens, right? Like think about fraternity and sorority hazing, and I know it happens. Hopefully, it doesn't happen here at Gettysburg College, but it's one of those things where when you're rushing or pledging or whatever the term is, you are trying so hard to get into this group, and you go through hell to get into that group. All right, it takes a lot of effort for you to go into this group. And guess what's going to happen once you get through it? Once you get through that hell and it's done, and you're a part of the group now, you're just like, that hazing wasn't so bad. This group is awesome. It wasn't so bad. Like, really? Because you were kind of like crying on a nightly basis because the hazing was so bad. No, but it was worth it. It was good. It formed brotherhood or sisterhood. It formed it. Right? That's what people will say. And in all reality, all they're doing is they're changing they're justifying themselves. They're changing their cognitions. Before they thought in this study they thought the task was really boring. Well, guess what? Now they love it. If you're in the severe group, if you're hazed as a fraternity member, or if you're hazed, all of a sudden now you're just like, the hazing wasn't so bad. Your book actually talks a lot about this for military, for boot camp. Boot camp is 9 months of just awfulness, of getting yelled at, physical activity, stress. That's what boot camp is. And the idea is that, and you hate it. I've never known anyone that says they hate boot camp. They may love the people they meet. They may love what the broader goal is to, fight for America and things like that. And that's great. That's great. But when they're all done, they're going to be like, boot camp wasn't that bad. But when you're in it, it's pretty damn bad. All right? It hurts. But you know what? That's going to create dissonance. Why would you put yourself through that kind of hell to join a group? That's where the dissonance comes from, and this is how you justify it.